This is a GoPro Hero7 video for complete beginners. If you are a seasoned GoPro user, you can just skip this video. On the side is your power and mode button. The back is a touch screen. This side is your door containing your HDMI port and your charging. On the bottom is the door containing your battery and your micro SD card. To turn it on, press the power and mode button. GoPro boots up, gives you information on your front screen, your battery indicator, time on your SD card, and the video mode. On the back is the touch screen. On the top right is your battery percentage. The battery indicator will turn yellow and red when your battery gets low. The magnifying glass is a digital zoom function. I've never used that. On the bottom, this is one way you can set your frame rate, your field of view, Pro Tunes, your resolution. You click it here. You can scroll around and you can change all these settings just by clicking on them. For instance, sharpness. You can choose high, medium, or low. Here are my recommended video settings for different scenarios. So I typically shoot at 2.7K, sometimes 4K, sometimes even 1080. It all depends. But I like working with 2.7K. You can scale it down to 1080. You can reframe within your editing program. So right now I'm in video mode. If I want to change that, I go here, change my resolution. I can go switch from 4:3 to 16:9 in the upper right. So if you like to shoot in 1080, 2.7 or 4K, you go here. I usually go 2.7K 60. If you want to change your frame rate, you just click on it. You can go 30, 24, back to 60. You can go up to 120. The grayed out ones, you clearly can't click on. This is really easy to use back here, and it'll tell you Hypersmooth stabilization. That means your Hypersmooth, your stabilization is working. So if you go into 4K and you try to go to a 120, it says 120 is supported at 2.7K, but not 4.7. And you notice there's no Hypersmooth. If you go down to 30, you have your Hypersmooth. So it'll tell you what it's capable of. So I'm going to go back here, go 2.7K 60, and there's my settings. So if you're in video mode and you want to switch to time-lapse, you swipe to the right. You can switch between time-lapse, video, and photo. When you're in video, this indicator lets you record in bursts of 15 or 30 seconds. So if you want to create something for social media, that's a good option to use. The top left is your SD card and how much time you have left when you're on video. You change the photo. It'll show you about how many photos you have left. And again, when you're in photo mode, there's a timer button right here. So similar to the 15-second and 30-second video timer, this is a delay timer. So you got 3 seconds and 10 seconds if you want to get into your shot or use it to have a stable shot. You can change your photo settings in the same method here. So anything here you can click on. You can change any of these settings. Right now you're looking at my recommended photo settings. Again, if you're shooting at night or something like that, these settings will change, but for general settings, here you go. So let's go over to time-lapse. To get into time-lapse settings, swipe left, time-lapse. In the lower left is your select. You have time warp video. Time warp video, we use time-lapse combined with the Hypersmooth stabilization to create an ultra smooth moving time-lapse. Time-lapse video, the second one down, will automatically stitch your video together after the capture. You can change resolution from 4K to 1080. Field of view, you leave it wide, and your interval goes from a half a second all the way to 60 seconds. Time-lapse photo is just going to take the photos. You have to stitch them together later in post. Night-lapse photo uses a longer shutter, it says auto, and a longer interval. You can change your interval here, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, etc. Shutter, you can do manual or auto. I usually go 30 seconds on night lapse. And field of view is always wide. I usually will always put my photos on RAW, and I turn Pro Tune on, so you can have more settings, such as you can set your ISO max, your grading color, same things we talked about in photo. The difference between time warp and time lapse is time warp uses image stabilization, whereas time lapse is just taking photos and it will stitch it together for you. I do time warp videos in 4K wide, and depending on the activity, I change the speed. So right now you're looking at recommended speed settings for different activities in time warp settings. Here's a little example of the difference in time warp, which uses stabilization, and time lapse, which doesn't. As you can see, you wouldn't want to use this method with time lapse. You wouldn't want to watch this. But in time warp, it's very smooth. And so you might notice that GoPro is kind of listening to me. And I kind of thought it was a gimmick at first. But then once I started using it, I actually really liked it. So you can tell it to do GoPro video. And it switches to video and starts recording. GoPro stop recording. Okay. GoPro photo. Switches to photo. GoPro time lapse. So this is really handy if you don't have your hands on your camera, or what I really like to do is tell it to turn off. There you go. So you can also tell your GoPro to turn on, but I have that setting shut off. So you can swipe down and go into preferences. This is your voice controls. Blue is on, gray is off. Beeps, on, off. The rabbit is when you turn your camera on, it'll start doing photos, time lapse, or video. What do you have it set at? I have that turned off. And this is the lock screen. Preferences, you have connections. You can turn your wireless on and off to share with your smartphone. Connect device. If you have a GoPro app, a remote, an old smart remote, or a Bluetooth device, connect it there. This gives you basic camera info, such as your default password and your default camera name, Wi-Fi band, and you can reset your connections if you get a new phone or something. Let's go into general. Beat volume, low, you can change the low, mid, high. Default mode, I have at video. If you want to change that, so if you turn your camera on, you go direct to photos. I always kind of go direct to video. Auto power off, I have set to 5 minutes. LEDs I have set to all on, so all angles of the camera you can see if you're recording. Video compression, I leave at H.264 and HBEC. I recommend just leave it at that. Time, obvious, date, and date format, however you prefer. Voice control, you can go here, you can tell it on or off. You can also go wake on voice, which I have set to off. You can set that to on. You can tell it GoPro turn on, it'll turn on. Language, commands. So here are your list of commands in case you forgot them. I'll blow them up here on the screen for you to see. Back to the main screen. touch display. You can lock in landscape. I always keep it in landscape. So for landscape lock, when you're using your GoPro, if you turn it, the screen will rotate. I keep that off because when I turn it, I want it to rotate. Keep in mind that you can shoot videos and photos like this. So if you're careless, when you start your video and you're holding it like this or like this, you might start it in the vertical orientation, which is good for iPhone or social media, Android. But just be aware, the way you start your video is how it's going to record the whole time until you stop your video. So if you record like that, it's gonna do upside down. If you do portrait, it's gonna stay in portrait. Screensaver, 1 minute. So you just saw the screen shuts off if you haven't touched it in a minute. Brightness, choose your own preference here. Regional, GPS. In order to use your stabilization, you need to turn your GPS on. Language, video format. If you're in the United States, you want to use NTSC. If you're not, you can go to select PAL. Input output. This is for connecting to your HDMI output and your audio input. About just gives you your update information. It tells you to connect your camera to your GoPro app. Keep it up to date. Camera info, this will just give you your camera name, serial number, your version, and reset your options here. To get the preferences, you swipe down. If you want to turn the voice control off, turn it right there. Now if you tell it, GoPro turn off, it doesn't do anything. In the middle setting, when swiping from left to right, is your video. Swipe to the right, you have photos. Swipe the other direction, you go time lapse. To change your settings within a time lapse, a video, or a photo, you click down here. You have more options for video by clicking here. If you turn on Pro Tune, it'll give you more options such as ISO min, max, white balance, sharpness. Same with photo. For playback, you swipe up on your camera. And your camera should start playing back. This is a time lapse. When you're in playback, you can click here and this acts as a scrubber. You can scrub through your time lapse or video. You can use this tag to mark a highlight. The highlight will come in handy if you're editing with GoPro Quick. I only have one video on here because I deleted everything, but if you want to see multiple videos or photos at one time, you click this grid in the upper left corner. It'll show you everything you can select. Get back to the main screen, you swipe down. Preferences, swipe down again. I'm going to turn the voice command back on. GoPro, take a photo. Just took a photo. Again, you want to change, if you want to set a timer, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. If you want to change photo settings into burst or night mode, it's right there in the corner. Most of the time, I'm just in photo. GoPro turn off. One accessory that I recommend buying is a lens cap. You can buy these on Amazon. It's a silicone thing that just clicks right on there. And you can search on Amazon for a lens cover for a Hero 5, 6, or 7. They're all the same footprint. And that's it.